Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Mamadou Ndiaye. I am a program director at JFF, where I work on programming and policies designed to improve career outcomes for young and older adults who want to attain economic self-sufficiency but face lots of barriers to get there. Some of those barriers we will get into today and into today's conversation. We are delighted that you're here with us. Thanks for joining the session today, which is part of the It Started at Horizons webinar series. The series builds on conversations that were started at JFF's National Conference, Horizons, held in June 2020, which brought together thousands of individuals representing organizations from across workforce, education, philanthropy, employers, policymaking, etc., for 4 days to explore solutions to some of the greatest challenges we face as a country. We invite you to check out highlights of Horizon sessions as well as previous episodes of It Started at Horizons webinar series on our website, jff.org, and our YouTube channel. Today's session is about hearing directly from learners and workers that we serve. Now more than ever, it is critically important to ensure that discussions and decisions about learners and workers do not take place without them. A core belief at JFF is that learners and workers are experts at what works for them, and we can learn a lot from them about what it takes to create more equitable education and workforce systems that leave no one behind. Before we start the conversation with our guest, a few words about logistics. We would love to engage you, the audience, in the conversation. So if you have questions, comments, reactions, please use the chat to let us know. My JFF colleagues are monitoring the chat and will share your questions, comments with me. And we will get to as many as possible during the conversation. Now, let's get to the conversation. We have two extra special guests for today's episode. Diamond Staley and Sebastian Holden. Welcome, Diamond and Sebastian. I will let them introduce themselves a little bit more and tell us about their background, how they experienced the education and workforce system, where they are now, and what are their ambitions for the future. So let me start with you, Diamond. Can you share a little bit about yourself and include, as part of that, tell us where you grew up and your experience with your education and workforce system in general, and the programs you attended, as well as what you're doing right now.
Sure. So my name is Diamond Staley, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Where I grew up, I went to high school here, a high school called Western High School, where the focus was college prep. So once I graduated, I did go right into college at Bowie State University, but I ended up leaving Bowie State because I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go in. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to kind of gather my thoughts and figure out what it is that I wanted to do. So I ended up working, and as you know, time flashes in a blink of an eye. And it was about 4 years later, I ended up working at a restaurant. And I had heard about a program called NPower from my family. And at first I was kind of apprehensive because I was scared that I wouldn't be successful. But I had an interview, and I went and I said, you know what, I'll find out more about it. And at the interview, it just felt so welcoming. I didn't want to leave. Like, I fell in love with the people that worked there, and I could tell that they were really committed to helping me change my life. So that was in 2017. I ended up joining the program. And after the program, I had an internship for the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Baltimore. I ended up working as a youth development professional for about a year, and I ended up coming back to NPower in 2019, where I have been since then as an assistant technical instructor. Currently, that is my position. I'm also enrolled in school again with a major in social sciences with a minor in African American studies.
Right, wonderful. Thank you, Diamond, for that. A lot to dig into. Now it's your turn, Sebastian.
So hello, everybody. Thank you for having me today. My name is Sebastian Holden. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. The last high school I attended was Madison Park High School in Roxbury, but that is not where I graduated. I didn't get my high school diploma due to a rocky and rough road that I had in the educational system. So that was due to the lack of interest in the curriculum, my dislike for the atmosphere throughout the whole entire school. Oh, not the whole entire school, I shouldn't say that, but certain aspects of the school. And that led me to dropping out of the school system altogether, which was Boston Public Schools, and going into a GED program that I felt like would be very much beneficial to me other than the other schools. So going into that GED program, I ended up getting my GED in less than 3 months, which I was very blessed and grateful for, that I didn't expect to do. And it opened a lot of opportunities for me from there, which I ended up getting connected from somebody that worked in the X-Cel Education, that worked in another organization that was called the RCFE, which is the Roxbury Center for Financial Empowerment. And they got me connected with another program that was a career and hospitality building program, which was a 4-week program, which was a financial program. And then another half of the program was a 12-week hands-on culinary experience program, which built on trade skills, culinary skills, and things like that. So once I was going through that program, they had somebody that was working for the Bayside Expo Center to facilitate one of our classes that we did. And he liked some of the students that we had in our organization, and he picked me as one of the students to go and do an interview for one of the people that he knew for Fenway Park, which is a baseball stadium down in Massachusetts. And after the completion of the program, of course, I got a handful of credentials. And with those credentials and the soft skills and the physical skills that I've gained, I ended up landing a job with Fenway Park. And I was eventually working with the Boston Red Sox after that, which happened in a 2-year period, which was pretty fast. So, and I don't think I ever would have got that experience if it wasn't for all the programs and all the education from the GED program and RCFE that I did. So, and now where I am now is I'm currently on leave of absence. I'm looking for work, and I'm just taking it one day at a time.
Great. Thank you, Sebastian. And I have to say that I'm jealous that you had a chance to work for the Red Sox. I think that sounds like a really cool job. So we'll dig into that a little bit. And I'll go back to you, Diamond, because I wanted to, it sounds like your journey, right? And this was a journey from college, to leaving college, to going back to school, to NPower, to graduating, and now working for NPower. I'm guessing was full of challenges, right? So I wanted to ask you just to explain, just elaborate a little bit more about, like, what were some of the challenges that you faced along the way as you were transitioning from one point to another?
Sure. So first, that initial challenge joining NPower, as I mentioned, I was nervous because what we do here is get people into entry-level positions and train in entry-level work such as hardware and software. And I've always known how to use technology, like the basics. I know how to use a computer. I know how to use Word. I know how to use my cell phone. But when I would come into class, sometimes my instructor, who's actually now my lead, would sometimes introduce me to things that would have me literally wanting to get up and walk out. Like I can think of in particular when we learned binary. It was like me learning a completely different language. So I would really rely on like my classmates as well as him to give me that extra support, because this was very introductory for me. I wasn't like what you would call a computer whiz. So I definitely had that challenge. And then leaving NPower, going into my internship, it was kind of that nervousness to make them proud, because I was like, oh, I came this far. I have to impress them at the internship, because, they're always communicating and letting each other know, like, oh, she's doing this, she isn't doing this, she's doing that. So it was that nervousness to kind of make them proud, and also just, show myself that I could do it. So, and then coming back that was definitely one for the books, because I was feeling like, well, it helped. This program helped me so much. I just wanted to make sure that I made the same impact on the trainees that came in as well. So I felt like I put a lot on myself when I first started to kind of want to be what, kind of to replicate the same experience for the trainees, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. And Sebastian, to you, you talked about the challenges that you faced in high school, that high school didn't work for you. But I'm also just curious, just if you don't mind, just going into a little bit of detail about, what in high school did not work for you versus when you work. It sounds like when you went to X-Cel, it was a totally different experience. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so a big part, like I said, was the curriculum for me. I was learning a lot of stuff that I felt like to me was unnecessary. I felt like it wasn't things that I would apply in my everyday life. So that's really what drew me away from the school system. And then when I went to X-Cel Education, they had me working on things that was going to be on the test of the GED that I needed to pass. It wasn't unnecessary things that I had to do, like learning about 3 different type of rocks. Like, who's going to need to know that type of stuff in their everyday lives? But then I don't even know how to do taxes, So it's kind of like it's weird for me. The schools are weird. I don't think that they teach the right type of curriculum to have people grow as adults in this world. And then another part, like I said, was the atmosphere. I felt like the teachers were sometimes just doing things because it was their job. It felt like if you wasn't there mentally and if you wasn't there physically in the class, they would give you a counselor and they'll give you a school nurse, but it felt like just because it was their job. They didn't really care. It was just because it was part of something they had to do. When I went into the GED program, I got a way more intimate experience where people got to know you as an individual and know the needs and things that you need as a person, other than just giving you something and telling you you got to do it. And if you don't feel good, okay, well, go to an office, go to like the nurse's office or something. That's not going to work for everybody. Every individual is different. So that was some of the difficulties that I had in high school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's quite interesting. I wanted to, because we've talked about this before, right? We're sort of in a very different environment right now, especially with the pandemic, and how the pandemic has sort of impacted the lives of everyone, frankly, but especially the lives of learners and workers who are trying to navigate the education and workforce systems. And Diamond, kind of based on where you're sitting now, because you used to be a student at NPower, but now you're working to help students who are coming to NPower, right? So what do you see as the biggest challenges that learners face, in the context of the pandemic?
Sure. So I can use some examples from this previous cohort we had. We had some students who started and who seemed like they would be really strong, that they would breeze through what we had to teach them and be able to move into the next phase. And that was based off interviews and like the first couple of weeks of class. But what happened was, with the pandemic, at one point people were getting like unemployment, so they were able to sustain being in a program and paying their bills. But of course, I believe midsummer that stopped. So some people had to go back to work. They were like, I really want to do this program. I really feel like it would impact me. But right now, I just have to focus on my funds. So sometimes people, you have to make a choice. Like, understanding that this can help you in the long run, but right now I have to focus on the right now is something that's very real. People are worried about eating and paying their bills, and sometimes education just comes second, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What would you say to that, Sebastian? What do you think are the biggest challenges, especially now? I mean, you're living it now, right? But I'm curious to hear from you, just based on your experience and others you're talking to. What would you say are the biggest challenges that people face?
I would say with me and even other people is the lack of motivation. A lot of things happen in people's lives. People passing away, people getting sick, and it unmotivates people completely. It just gives them the lack to like not do anything. It gives them no drive. I know for me, it gives me no drive. So it just, no motivation. There's no way to, get into a routine. I would say I had a routine that I would do that would motivate me in the morning, get up, go to work. And, you know, people just can't have that routine no more, you know, their lives are just completely changed and for the worse. So, and it's, so a big thing I would say is the lack of motivation for a lot of people. It's getting a lot of people to not want to do anything. And a lot of people are just scared. A lot of people are scared to go out right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're talking about sort of challenges at two levels. First, there is the basic challenge of just, you know, Diamond, like you were saying, eating, right? Basic necessities of life, eating, you know, and shelter and so on and so forth. So people are worried about that, and therefore education is sort of put you know, into the back burner, right? And then Sebastian, I think you're talking about sort of the social and emotional impact, right? That people get scared and lack motivation because of all the things that they're seeing happen around them. Does that sound like a fair characterization of what you've said? Good. So Diamond, so like I'm curious to hear from you, just, you know, in facing all these challenges and these challenges that you are helping your students navigate, like what do you do? Like how do you help them navigate these challenges?
Sure. So one of my favorite things about NPower as an organization is in each region we have a role of a social support manager. So we have people who are offering assistance, and you know that's from finding resources as such as different programs that you may have in your state that can aid to, you know, getting food or things like that. But more importantly, just seeing where your mind is. Kind of like Sebastian mentioned, mentally, people are just in a weird space right now. I know personally, I'm home 24/7 since the pandemic. It's been almost a year that we've been mainly home, and that can be tough on a lot of people, not really having those interactions like you're used to having. And our social support managers fill an important role of making sure that not only do you have those resources that you need physically, but mentally, are you okay? Do you need somebody to talk to? You know, how are you feeling? So, you know, we have that in place, and I think that helps our trainees immensely.
Mm-hmm. So the one-to-one sort of personal connection, personal touch, right? You're saying makes a difference. Yeah.
Yes.
Sebastian, what about you? Like, I'm curious, you know, to hear from you, like some of the things that perhaps that you have seen that really like makes a difference in people's life, like help them address some of the challenges that you were talking about. Like, have you seen any interventions or any programs that actually help people address the challenges that you mentioned?
So I personally, I haven't seen too many, but a lot of programs that I do think that would benefit, that could, you know, get organized, would be some career building that are working on multiple careers at once, not just one career, but multiple careers, so that they can get people into better, motivate people, you know, get people into better headspaces. Because a lot of programs offer just one program and not a lot of mental help, as you said, but more about, I think more of the programs, you know, because I don't see a lot of mental health help out there, which is sad, which is something that needs to be changed. But a lot of things that I think would help people is just getting more opportunities to get people out of that mindset, you know, just getting people more careers and more trainings to something that would actually have them building a career on something that, like, in a time of like this in the pandemic, where nobody is going to know what's going to happen, at least have a job where you know you're going to be secure at a job, even in a time like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting because, you know, I'm hearing you say that like mental health is critically important, right? Because you have to be in the right mindset to be able to focus on school, right? So we need to sort of have mental health services incorporated into the programs that we offer. I think that's really great and good food for thought for us, for the rest of us. So I wanted to switch a little bit because I think we've talked about the challenges, right? And I think we've elevated lots of challenges, social, emotional challenges, sort of basic life necessities type challenges, mental health type challenges, but also like I wonder if maybe there's a silver lining. Like, are there opportunities that you have seen in the context of the pandemic of COVID-19 in terms of education and workforce and the way you have experienced it? Are you seeing opportunities, perhaps? And I'll go to you, Diamond, for that first.
Yes, I would say we are having more opportunities to reach more people. We have 2 locations in Baltimore, West Baltimore and East Baltimore. But since we've been virtual, we're able to reach people from DC in different regions to where they don't have to come in to our building, but they're still able to learn. Like right now, it's snowing, it's hailing, and I know that if that would be something that, if we were in the office, that can hinder our process, that could get us behind, because we're a fast track program. We only do the program for 16 weeks. So snow days and stuff like that are usually not really good for us, because that can kind of stall our process. So being virtual actually helps with that, with the weather, and like I said, reaching people that are not in Baltimore specifically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And if you don't mind, I'll push on that a little bit. So being virtual gives you the opportunity to serve more students, to engage more learners, right? But I'm also guessing that learning virtually is not for everyone. Like some people will struggle, right, with being in a virtual environment. What has been your experience with that?
Yes, so it's been interesting. We're getting the hang of it, but initially when we first went virtual, we did kind of have a disconnect, because as you mentioned, a lot of people learn different. So we had some people telling us that they liked being virtual, that they actually preferred being virtual and getting the information that way. But then we had a lot of people, and I believe that I would have been one of these people when I was in a program. I would have much preferred to be in person, simply because I'm just getting into this. So breaking into a new field, it can be kind of intimidating doing it virtually, because you have to rely on yourself a lot more, because I can't come to you when I see confusion in your face and say, hey, are you good? Do you need some help? Do you need to stay when class is done so that I can help you? Which I still do, but it's just a little bit more difficult to read people virtually. So it's just been a process of me kind of tweaking the way that I do my job, and noticing cues. Does somebody have their camera off? Has somebody not been answering any questions? Is the chat empty? Different cues like that lets me know that, okay, maybe we need to rework how we're teaching this right now. Maybe we need to take a break, give everybody like 10 or 15 minutes to kind of regroup and come back. So it's been a learning experience. It's definitely helped me improve the way that I teach, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Diamond, something else that comes to mind for me is that to be able to learn in a virtual environment, you have to have access to a computer, right? You have to have access to the technology and also a decent internet connection. What has been your experience with that, and how do you help people address that?
Sure. So here at NPower, what we do is when we do our admissions process, we ask you, do you have access to a computer? Do you have access to the internet? And unfortunately, sometimes people respond no. So we do have loaner laptops that we do give out to people who are in need of laptops, that we ask them to come in and come to get them, and they sign like an agreement, just saying that they'll take care of them and give them back. And we also issue hotspots to people that need them as well.
That's great. That's wonderful. Sebastian, let me turn to you, and go back to this issue of, like, we've talked about a lot of opportunities, but we've talked about lots of challenges, but there maybe are opportunities. Like, what from your perspective, what do you see as opportunities that this moment offers for education and training providers?
Yeah, so a lot of people who are disabled and a lot of elderly people can get back to work virtually. Like she said, the virtual is helping a lot of people get back to work who normally couldn't stay on their feet for at least 6 hours a day, or maybe have some type of disability that can't have them work at all outside of home. So this offers a lot more opportunities for people who can work virtually who can't normally. And it also offers the continuation of virtual employment after COVID, which even after COVID, then they won't be scared that they're not going to be out of a job because their job still might be virtual and they'll still be able to keep on working. Another good thing was probably just simply being with family every day, seeing your family, hearing the kids in the morning when you had to, instead of being in work and hearing your coworker complain about something is probably a lot better. To some people, I would say, I don't have kids, but I would think so. You know? So yeah, and
yeah, I don't.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And then another thing for me is just simply I get to cook for myself. Me being a chef, I'm cooking for people every single day. So now I get to sit down and I can actually cook myself a nice meal and sit down and enjoy it.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, it's it's a sort of double-sided thing here, right? Because you can, sometimes it may be beneficial to be with family. Other times it may be beneficial to be with coworkers. It sounds like there's some type of balance is needed, right? So that you're not getting too much of one thing or the other. So
Exactly.
that's really interesting. That's really interesting to hear. Yeah. So I wanted to switch a little bit, and just ask you about kind of how the workforce and education system is sort of responding to your needs, right? And Diamond, I'll go back to you. Like I'm thinking about it like an adult, right? Like you, working person, working mother, right? Who has a kid. Like I wonder, based on your own personal experience and also the work that you're doing, what are like strategies or perhaps a program features that we should think about to be able to respond to the needs of working adults like yourself?
Sure. I think an important thing for people, programs, businesses to consider is flexibility. Understanding that, just because people are home doesn't mean that they're not, busy. So personally, I like you mentioned, I work full time and then I'm in school full time and then I have my daughter at home doing school virtually too. So it's all a balancing act. And luckily, I'm at a place where my schedule is kind of broken up. So we have 2 sessions. So my schedule is broken up, and I have a little bit of time in between. But everybody does not have that luxury. But I think that if people consider having flexibility and allowing for people to kind of work on like a schedule that's not so strict, that can help people out a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And along those lines, so flexibility is important, you're saying, right? Like I wonder about, again, going back to this issue of just how do you build and maintain relationships in a remote environment, right? Just what do you think the support, in addition to flexibility, like other types of support, what does that need to look like, for the adults to feel really supported? If this is happening in a remote environment, what can we do to make those supports real and beneficial?
Right. So as I mentioned, we have a role where a person does that, the social support manager. I think that every place should have somebody that is checking on people during this time because we're home, and as I mentioned before, some people are home alone. So they might be feeling kind of sad or like depressed. I think it's a good idea to just have somebody that's reaching out and just making sure that people are okay. People are constantly losing people during this time. It's very scary. So just knowing that you have support feels really good. Just knowing that there's somebody out there that cares how you're feeling could definitely go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Sebastian, from your perspective, as a young man who doesn't have kids, right? But certainly needs support too. Like, what do you see as the most important supports that people who are in your situation need?
So I would say employment-wise, they need to be more transparent with how they are. Well, let me sorry. They have to be more transparent on the way they. I'm sorry, my whole mind is blinking right now. I don't know why. Can you repeat the question again? I'm so sorry. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Yeah, you started talking about employment, and I'll build on that a little bit. So, what can employers do to support young people like yourself, like someone who's in your situation? What can be done to support them?
Yeah, so definitely helping them find more work, knowing that people are not going to be working in their company more longer, helping them transition into other fields of work that are similar to that field of work that they're in currently. That's something that I didn't get. Once I was on a leave of absence, nobody checked on me and seen if I was looking for another job or if there was any other jobs in the area that were similar to the culinary industry. No one ever checked on me about that. And then no one ever told me about what was going to happen with my health insurance about my company. Nobody ever told me about what was going to happen about like 401ks and stuff like that. So I think that being a little bit more transparent with the workers about that type of stuff in times like this is something that's very important that could help a lot of people. Because I'm clueless about that type of stuff, especially people who have no education or no experience in that type of stuff, like taxes, 401ks, stuff like that, for example, would help a lot of people just being transparent and finding more work for them in fields of work that they're already in. I think that should be the employer's responsibility because they're the ones that's their company. So the employers are responsible for the employees.
Right. And just to
really
go ahead,
fast,
please. Yes,
'cause
please.
he makes an excellent point. One thing that I can say is during this pandemic that I've been very appreciative of the company that I work for because they've been so transparent. It's been, sometimes it might be several meetings, but at the end of those meetings, I know what's going on. Like I'm aware of where my job stands. Nobody wants to wake up every morning thinking like, oh, I might not have my job by the time this day is over. So just reassurance feels really good at a time like this. I think that's super important. I'm glad that you brought that up, Sebastian. That's super important.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I deal with too, because I didn't even know what a leave of absence was. My company didn't give me no heads up. I didn't have no meetings. I didn't have no calls about what was going to happen for the next steps. They just kind of like left me to the curb, and I had to call personal coworkers myself and ask them like, what's going on with the company? And even these guys didn't even know what was happening. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And Sebastian, so in your case, your employment stopped when the pandemic hit, right? Is that right? Okay. And then you're saying that you didn't get any communication from the company about what they were doing and what were the plans, going forward or any of that.
No, yeah, I didn't get no plans at all. Actually, the only reason why I ended up getting a job after Fenway Park and working with the Red Sox is because I had to personally talk to one of the chefs and ask him about opportunities after the company was going to get shut down for COVID because they already knew that COVID was coming and they had to shut down the company. So yeah, so I had to personally go to chefs and ask them about what other opportunities were going to be there.
I see. Yeah. So I'm hearing just a lot of communication, right, from the company to the workers, and a lot of support, right? A lot of support, including everything from financial supports, financial literacy supports, social emotional supports, mental health. Yeah, it sounds like companies need to respond, right, to and just be available, right, and offer to their employees a wide range of supports, right, and just not just to stop communication. I think that's not that's not very good. So let me so then uh, I'll generalize a little bit. I think we've talked about the supports that adults like working mothers need, and I think Diamond, you spoke to that, and Sebastian, from your perspective, you talked about supports that individuals like yourself might need. And I wonder about like we work with individuals that have disabilities. We have immigrants and refugees that we work with. We also have, veterans that we serve. Like, I wonder if you have any, ideas or recommendations for us, for those of us, advocates and program folks, to be able to better serve those populations. Like, again, I'm thinking about veterans, I'm thinking about people with disabilities, I'm thinking about people who are learning to speak English, and so on and so forth. Like, what ideas do you have that could benefit those populations?
I'll go first.
Sure.
So I think that, especially if the programs will be virtual, you need to really offer that support and have different resources available for not even just like the people that you're helping, but your staff to help those people, because that's where it starts, with the people that are actually helping the people. So professional development, making sure that people know how to do the best job to help these people, because that's the root of it, is your staff. Your staff has to be happy, your staff has to be developed, they have to know how to do these things well in order for it to translate to working for the people that you're assisting.
And I along those lines, like, I also wonder, again, based on your personal experience, just like, how do programs like help you take ownership of what you're doing? Like, how do programs make sure that whatever they're doing works for you, right? Do you have any advice or any ideas on that? Like, how could programs really better include your voice into what they're doing? Like, I've just to give an example, I have seen programs where students, workers, and learners are regularly consulted through surveys, where they run focus groups, for example, as one form of engaging learners and workers in the program. But I'm curious to hear, like, from your perspective, like, Sebastian, for example, maybe is there something that X-Cel or maybe the training program or other training programs could be doing to make sure that your voice is included in whatever program that they decide to put in place?
Yeah, so like you said, simply just listening to the people, but like surveys would be a good way of doing it, seeing what the individual needs are for people in certain sections of the program, like curriculum-wise, or just the atmosphere of how they want everything to be kind of run in a responsible way, of course, implementing changes in a responsible way, in a way that makes sense. But, and showing the people that their voices really matter, and show the people like that their changes being made because of them, if that makes sense.
Have you seen? I mean, have you seen something like that done? Like, do you have an example of how something like that was done in your experience anywhere?
Yeah. So a lot of the people at the GED program were very comfortable with tutors. They didn't really like teachers. So that was a big thing that was implemented, was tutors in the program, to make people feel more welcomed and make people feel like they actually wanted to come and tutor the kids and tutor the people and volunteers, and not have people who wanted to be there because of the money or the paycheck and stuff like that. So that was one way of implementing the change, and hearing the people's voice and actually showing them that it changed.
That's great. That's great. Diamond, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with surveys and also forums where you allow the students to come in and have a conversation where they can express, okay, this is working, this is not working. Because as somebody that went through NPower before, I'm completely open to criticism that I face from students, especially if it's constructive, because I'm still learning how to do a lot of things. And I think that's true about all of us. Nobody does what they do completely perfect. We all can use some advice. So I'm always asking students, like, okay, now that we're at the, especially like with the last cohort at the end of the program, just kind of getting some feedback. Like, how did you feel the class went? What do you feel like maybe could have been a little bit different? Just, seeking advice, because I knew that the next time that the class happened, we would be being virtual again. So I kind of just wanted some advice on how to maybe fine tune some things that I did before, or maybe not do some things that I did before, because that might not have worked. So just being open to criticism and advice can help you help your companies a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I think this is a really important part of the conversation, because in my experience, it's easier said than done, right? And this is absolutely where I think we as a field need to make a lot more progress, right? So I'm just curious to hear like additional like perhaps ideas that you have on how to do this and do it really well. I think we talked about doing surveys, we talked about being open to criticism, right? We talked about just listening to students, but I'm thinking about like, this, what else does it take for a program or a school, to really engage students in the design, right? And really take into account your learners and students' voices, right? In terms of designing the program. I'm just curious to hear more from you guys.
I would say have people that went through the same experiences as the kids. So instead of having people who went through college and went through all these things that normally the people who went to the programs wouldn't have went through, it'll be feeling more comfortable. It'll probably make the program a little bit more better to have staff who are involved and have been through the stuff that some of the people who are going through the programs have been through, and they can relate with, to make it a little bit more easier time for the staff, the program, and everybody.
Yeah, and that sounds like. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that's a good point. One of the things about NPower that's really great is a lot of people that are in my position, which is an assistant technical instructor, are alumni. So all of us have been through this program. We've all been through the 16-week process, and many of us have been through the internship process as well. Some people go right into teaching, so they do the program, and then they have like just a little bit of a resting period, and then they come back. But myself, I went through the program. I went and worked, had an internship and worked somewhere for a year. But when I came back, I felt like I made a good contribution, because I've literally been in their shoes before. Like, I've been doubtful. I've been feeling like this is not going to work for me. I've been feeling like I don't want to be here. Like, I've literally gone through all the emotions that they feel. So I think that helps when dealing with people, because it's like, well, I know what you've been through, and look at me. I've literally went through the program, did what I have to do, and now I'm back here. So I just like to always let people know, I know it's hard. I've been in your shoes, but you can make it through, So I think that helps a lot too. Like he mentioned, just having people who've done it before.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah, and it's exactly actually what I was going to say, Diamond, before you jumped in. I feel like NPower has done a really good job having you all in the front lines, right? You all who have experienced the program, and just, and being in a sort of much better position to talk about the program to other people, right? To convince them and to help them work through some of the challenges that you all have faced and that they're facing. So that's really great. And I think, Sebastian, correct me if I'm wrong, I think X-Cel also does the same thing, right? That the staff at X-Cel are also people who graduated from the program. Is that right?
Yeah, so at least 2 of the staff in X-Cel who are full-time have been graduates of the program. And just from the tutors who haven't been graduates, there's some people who are incarcerated who have went to college after and want to share their experiences and share their knowledge with the people who think that are more like them, So, yeah.
That's great. So I want to switch again, because as you know, we are successful as with just some students, but not with all students, right? We face a big challenge in our field of scale, right? Meaning what do we do to serve, to make sure that the many numbers of students who need these programs and these services access them, right? We have examples of really excellent and outstanding students. At the same time, we have many more who are not taking advantage of these wonderful resources that, for example, NPower and X-Cel offer. I'm curious to hear from you just what can be done. What should we do to make sure that all the people, without any exception, get access to these wonderful resources? And Diamond, I'll start with you.
Sure. One thing I'll mention, and Sebastian kind of touched on it earlier, was our school systems are not always the best. So I'm speaking specifically about why a lot of people don't know about certain programs that are available or don't think that they can do certain things. Personally, I had computer classes when I was in high school. I had computer science class, but it was boring. It was very standard copy and paste. Excel, it used to put me to sleep. So of course, as I'm going, I'm thinking that's what that field is. It's boring. I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to just be sitting at a computer all day, just copying and pasting. Like, this is so boring. I think that it starts with school systems getting better curriculum. Let you know there's so much more than just knowing how to type. It's so much more than just knowing how to use a phone. Technology has so many different ranges and careers and things that you can do. And I feel like people don't know about that. And that's just specifically for like NPower. I feel like a lot of people don't know how well they can do in technology because they have not been exposed to it. If that makes sense. Like, of course, you don't know how well you can do if you limit yourself because you're thinking like, oh, that's not for me. And that was almost me. I almost didn't come to the program because I said, oh, that's not really, I don't think I would do good. But that was from my experience in high school, being super bored and just not into it. So I think it starts there and then it continues with just reaching out, like just having that networking, meeting different people, letting them know like, hey, this is what we're doing here. And if you know anybody that would be a good fit, send them to us. It's all about reaching out to people to try to get people in.
Mm-hmm. So a lot more we need to do, it sounds like, in terms of just outreach and networking. That's great. Sebastian, what about you?
So I would say have programs put in locations that need them the most. A lot of the times I'm seeing a lot of the programs are out far where you have to travel. A lot of people can't travel. A lot of people don't have the expenses to keep on traveling every single day or every other day to go to a program and try and get their GED or try and build a career. So I would say put in the programs in areas that need them the most and actually do the research on what's impacting those communities. As if there's a big rate in mental health in one of the communities, you would want to put a program that has mental health issues that are working with mental health issues into that community. You don't want to put a mental health program out in like 10, 11 miles away where somebody can't even reach it, So I would say the availability of the programs and putting them in locations where people actually need it and not in far out places that people can't reach.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to switch because I see a few questions coming in from the audience. What I'd like to share with you in the rest of the time. So one is where does NPower? This is for Diamond. So where does NPower get its soft skills training? Is it homegrown or do you work with a partner?
So it's a little bit of both. Our social support managers work with our career team. So we have a career team as well that help people when they get into the internship phase. So they work with them to do professional development as well. So it's a conjuncture of the SSMs, the career placement team, as well as partnerships that we have. So specifically in Baltimore, when we were open, we would have someone come from Bon Secure Hospital that would teach people different things about like money management, and savings and how to, build investment, different things like that, kind of like Sebastian mentioned, how you go to school and they don't teach you anything about managing your money. We also used to have people from Bank of America come in. So we work with different people as well as some homegrown things.
Right, thank you. So another question, and this one is for Sebastian. Sebastian, what is the distinction between tutors and teachers? Sounds like you touched on this a little bit, but I think just maybe just 1 minute to elaborate on that. Yeah, what at X-Cel, what were the differences between tutors and teachers?
Yeah, so the tutors, it was more voluntarily tutors. So no one was getting paid. They come when they want and they leave when they want. But that was the big part, is that we knew that they were there because they wanted to be there, not because it was their job, but because they wanted to help somebody succeed and they wanted to see somebody grow as an individual. As in the schools, we have teachers who are just doing stuff for money and they're just doing stuff for a paycheck. Not every teacher is like that. I'm not going to say every teacher, because that would be a little bit disrespectful to the school system altogether. But some teachers I would see would just do stuff because of their job. And just with tutors and volunteers, I didn't get that type of vibe from them. It was always like they wanted to be there and they gave their whole 110%, even when we wasn't, which it wasn't something that I seen in the school system. A lot of times in the school, when one individual isn't giving their 110%, the teacher would just brush them off to the side. Okay, why am I going to give my 100% to you if you're not even giving your 100%? So that's a big part, was the volunteers, and of why the volunteers are better than the school system, I feel like.
Another question that I think I'd love to hear from both of you. Someone's asking about just sort of what are some ways we can support learners to look more at the long term, to not just consider short-term jobs and short-term credentials, but really consider more advanced like trainings that typically result in better careers, right? So, because like as you know, right, there's a lot of students come into the program, they want something really quick, right? They want to get a job right away, or they want to get something really quick that can help them get a job, right? How do you help them like think beyond that, like think long term, to go for something that may take longer, but that also has a better outcome, a better payoff at the end, because you'll have a better job? Like how do you balance that?
I would say the big part would be use examples of people who actually went through the programs, and use them as examples so that people see that the results actually work for the long-term things, not the short-term things, because everybody wants a short-term thing, but nobody wants to put the work in for a long-term thing. So kind of see and show the results of how that have gone through that program worked for other people.
I'm going to add to that. I'm going to say that can be a little bit difficult, and that's being here in Baltimore and understanding the demographic of students that we usually get. Sometimes it's hard to tell people sacrifice now, and then in the end it will be a big reward, because you have to understand what their now looks like, right? So my advice, or what I would try to do, or what I wish I could do, was have some sort of way to where if people needed financial help, we could support them a little bit. Like, okay, here's some financial help for now, and then in the long run, you'll come off on the top, and we'll try to get you there. But it can be very difficult to tell people that they can't have instant gratification. And it's hard, because it's like, of course, nothing happens overnight. You have to work hard. But I also understand that in the long run, the results could be great. And like you mentioned, Sebastian, we do have different alumni come in and speak and, give their perspective of what the program did, and about how, they made it to the end and what making it to the end means. So that definitely can help. But I think that realistically, I wish we had some type of way that we could give a little bit of financial support, because I understand our demographic. I understand that we're dealing with people 18 to 25, in Baltimore City, and you know, it can be tough being 18 to 25 in Baltimore. So, yeah, any age.
I was gonna say probably in any city, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so you actually touch on the next question a little bit, because you know it sounds like it sounds like there's an opportunity here, right, to help people continue with their education at the same time earn a little bit of money, right? And so, you know, Diamond, you were saying that maybe we give them money while they're in the program to help them with, you know, immediate needs. I think that's one way to do it. Like, are there other approaches, other strategies that you would suggest on how to help people get money to take care of their needs, immediate, most pressing needs, and then at the same time focus on the long term?
Sure. So we mentioned before flexibility. Maybe understanding that if people could be doing like some part-time work while still participating in the program, that could possibly help. But of course, that would have to be flexibility, because again, our program is 16 weeks, and that might seem like a long time when you say it, but when you're in it, that is a flash. 16 weeks goes by like that. So it can be kind of hard to focus and do both. When I went through the program, I was fortunate enough to have a great support system that supported me while I was in the program. And my daughter was only 3 months when I was in the program. So I did have some challenges with like daycare, but I have a very strong support system. So my family stepped in and offered to like babysit. But that's my story. I understand that everybody does not have that same experience. So, you know, the finances can help a lot, as well as even the programs that don't have what we have in a social support manager. Maybe they make a position similar to that, because our social support manager is one of the most important people that's in my team. You know, she's out there contacting people, finding resources, reaching out to the food banks. When we were at our location, Friday was our professional development day. So, you know, everybody had to come dressed in business attire. She would be getting donations for our clothing closet for people that didn't have those resources. So if you have someone like that that's beating the ground, that's in the community, that's reaching out to everybody, I think that can help a lot too.
Yeah, and I'll turn to Sebastian here. So, like, I'm curious to hear from you. It's just sort of what would you suggest there? Like, I'm sure you know you have, while you were going to school, right? You had bills to pay or things that you needed to buy, right? And most of the time that gets in the way for some people, because they need to take care of those things first. That's more important than school, and so that as a result, they disengage. They become disconnected from school, right? So, are there any ways that people can get financial supports while they're going to school? Is it like maybe going to work and coming back a little bit, or? But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so a good example is when I went to my GED program, they had a paid internship for a wastewater management. So that was along with the GED program that allowed people to get paid while they get their GED, working on a career as well. So I would say working on internships for programs that are paid internships that build on careers later on, because that was one thing that really helped me, was getting a little bit of financial support while I was getting my GED, all in the same vicinity, you know, all in the same place. I didn't have to go nowhere really. I had to just go to the same organization every single day, and do both the internship a couple hours after my GED class, which is about 4 hours, and I would get paid at the end of the internship. So yeah, so definitely focusing on careers that have internships, that are paid internships in the programs.
Right, that's really helpful. That's helpful to hear, because you know, I mean, the truth is, it's like you both have experience. You know, most of the time the students that we're talking about have, you know, they have families, they have bills to pay, they have, you know, mouth to feed at home, you know, so, and those things are extremely important, and sometimes, you know, can get in the way. So if programs can figure out ways to help them address those challenges, and you know, so that they can focus on school, great. And one way to do it, it sounds like you both are saying, is just having sort of some paid component, whether it's an internship or it's money set aside to help address these challenges when they come up. So I think that's great. So we have come to the end of our time here. So thank you both for being here. Thank you for sharing your experience, and thanks for the advice that you've shared with us today. Congratulations too for everything you've done and everything you've achieved. Sebastian, best of luck with the job search. And Diamond, congratulations for what you're doing, and thank you for what you're doing to help other students who I'm sure are benefiting from your experience and your advice, having gone through the program. So that ends this this episode. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us in a future session soon.